here. So we're studying the Millennial Kingdom, and tonight I figured it'd be a good place to start would just be, what is God's plan here? And that's the thing about God. He doesn't sit there and spring things on us. I mean, he lays it out well ahead of time. What he plans to do, how he's going to accomplish it, and everything, right? So when he says in Revelation chapter 20, let's all go there. We know this is the end game. This is the establishment of the Millennial Kingdom. Revelation chapter 20, this is after Jesus Christ comes again. In chapter 19, he grabs the beast and the prophet, throws them, they're cast into the lake of fire. And then we have this. In Revelation chapter 20, verse 1, and I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. So, beginning to end, we know who this guy is, right? He's been there from the beginning as a serpent. Later here in Revelation in particular, he's seen as a dragon. Throughout the Bible, he's referred to as a deceiver and as Satan and the devil. And cast him, Satan, into the bottomless pit and shut him up and set a seal upon him that he should deceive the nations no more till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that, he must be loosed a little season. And it is during this 1,000 years in which Satan is bound and not running around, not going and whispering in everybody's ear, not going and tempting. And that's the thing. We like to say, well, the devil made us do it, or the devil's at fault, or the devil deceived us, or the devil. But let's face it, even when Satan isn't around, are people still going to sin? People still going to do bad? Yeah. Not the glorified ones, not the ones that are right with him, but people will still do that, right? Because it's in our order. It's in our heart, right? Verse 4, and I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus during the tribulation, and for the word of God, which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their forehead or in their hands, and they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. Now, what about the rest of us? Well, that's already done. That's done earlier. That's done before the wedding feast, before Jesus comes again. We are riding with them down, but these are the ones that died during that time of tribulation, right? So it's not like, oh, I'm sorry, you missed it, so I know you did all the right things, but we're going to make you wait 1,000 years. No, he's just like, let's get everybody in there, right? Anybody who puts their faith in Jesus Christ will be there to reign with him for that 1,000 years. But the rest of the dead live not again until 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy is he that hath part in the first resurrection. On such the second death has no power, but they shall be priests of God and of Christ, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. Now we later on will get into what will we be doing as these priests. What will we be doing as those sitting on thrones of judgment? What will we be doing during that millennium, and how will Jesus reign? Right now, we just know that this will happen, right? In fact, look what it says next, verse 7. And when the 1,000 years were expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison. So it is a clear-cut 1,000 years, and then Satan comes out. Right? So this is stated, but why? Why even do this? You ever ask that about God, what God is doing? Why even do this? Why is this part of some bigger plan? And the answer is
yes.
Yes. It is part of his plan. In fact, let's go back to see how far back it goes. So we're going to start in Genesis chapter 15. Now, Genesis 15 is not one of the millennial passages, but I'm using it as a jumping off point. If you're keeping score at home, try to figure out what those 51 are. This isn't one of them. Well, what I want to look at tonight is exactly how much God is in control. God is in control of this. You must be what? Sure. Right? Nothing else makes sense. I know. Christmas Carol. Marley is dead. But God is in control. This is the one fact you must understand. So the fact that we're having a millennium must be part of a plan, right?
Yes.
Because he's always in control.
Yes.
And he has a plan here. And we see here in Genesis chapter 15, let's see how he plays out his plan. Genesis chapter 15, we're going to start in verse 13, and this is God talking to Abram. Now, you know this is old if I refer to him as what?
Abram.
Abram. This is even before he becomes Abraham, right? This is Abram he's talking to. And he said unto Abram, know of a surety, be sure of this, that your seed, your heritage, your people, thy seed shall be a stranger in the land is not theirs, and shall serve them. They will be slaves in a foreign land, and they shall afflict them for 400 years. And also that nation, the one that afflicts them, whom they shall serve, will I judge, and afterwards shall they come out with great substance. This is what? Egypt. Several generations later, did they go to Egypt?
Yes.
To a foreign land. And did they, in the course of time, become slaves to that country?
Yes.
Yes. And how long, you want to guess, how long were they slaves to that country? 400 years. Wow, that's such a long time. I mean, we throw out these numbers as if it's nothing. 400. What was 400 years ago? 1625. 24, sorry. 1624. That was a long, can you imagine? Being enslaved, your family, your generation after generation. How many generations of your family does it take to go back to 1624? That's not your grandparents. It's not your great-grandparents. It's not your great-great-grandparents. It's not your great-great-great-grand. It's your great-great-great-great-great. I mean, we're going back. And for that long, God knew what he was doing, though, right? Why did God do that? Because he had a what? Plan. Because when they come out, they're going to come out with what?
Substance.
Great substance, and they're going to do it by God's mighty hand, so all the world will know that I am the true God, and I will bring them to a country, and I will establish them there where cities are already built, vineyards are already planted, orchards are already in place, and I will bring them into a fertile, wonderful country and give them that heritage, right? Mm-hmm. That is whose plan?
God's.
God's plan. In complete control, isn't he? By the way, does it happen? Absolutely. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 31. And what's happening in Deuteronomy 31? Well, they are about to go into that land. We'll jump ahead 440 years. Thereabouts. After their captivity. And we see here again, God knows everything. He knows exactly what's coming up, right? In fact, what does he know? And he tell Moses and Joshua. Deuteronomy chapter 31, starting at verse 14. And the Lord said unto Moses, behold, thy days approach that you must die. Well, that's not a big prophecy, of course, right? But he does know he's going to die before they go into the land. Call Joshua and present yourselves in the tabernacle of the congregation that I may give him a charge. And Moses and Joshua went and presented themselves in the tabernacle of the congregation. And the Lord appeared in the tabernacle in a pillar of a cloud, and the pillar of the cloud stood over the door of the tabernacle. So basically, so everybody knows what's going on. When they saw a pillar of cloud, what did they know? That's God. That always represented God, right? Led them by day by the pillar, by night by the fire, right? That's how they got here. And the Lord said unto Moses, behold, you shall sleep with your fathers, and this people will rise up and go a-whoring after the gods of the strangers of the land, whither they go to be among them, and will forsake me and break my covenant which I have made with them. Nice pep talk. I always picture myself in people's places. And I don't know if I'm Moses that I brought them here 40 years for this. How discouraging. Well, think of it from God's perspective. I brought them out of Egypt, and I brought them 40 years into this land, and this is what they're going to do to me? Mm-hmm. And the answer is yes. God knew it. Let's keep going. Verse 17. Then my anger shall be kindled against them in that day, and I will forsake them, and will hide my face from them, and they shall be devoured, and many evils and troubles shall befall them, so that they will say in that day, are not these evils come upon us, because our God is not among us? And who are they going to blame? They blame God, of course. And I will surely hide my face in that day for all the evils which they shall have wrought, and that they are turned unto other gods. Now therefore write you this song for you, and teach it to the children of Israel. Put it in their mouths, that this song may be a witness for me against the children of Israel. And you can read the song if you're in verse chapter 32. For when I shall have brought them into the land which I swear unto their fathers, that floweth with milk and honey, and they shall have eaten and filled themselves and waxen fat, then will they turn unto other gods and serve them and provoke me and break my covenant. And it shall come to pass, when many evils and troubles are befallen them, that this song shall testify against them as a witness. For it shall not be forgotten out of the mouths of their seed, for I know their imagination which they go about, even now, before I have brought them into the land which I swear. And basically, he knows that what? They will go astray, right? In fact, they will reject God, right? He knows that. This is the people. And by the way, this millennium whole thing is about who? It's about them. I want you to get this straight here. This is all part of God. The whole millennial kingdom is about him setting things right. Because he knew, I'm going to bring him into this land. By the way, where is the millennial kingdom? Where's the capital going to be? Jerusalem. Where is the country that's going to rule the world be? This land, right? I'm taking them in here, and I am their God, right? I am their king. I'm bringing them in, but I know that will not work. And they're going to go far from me, and I'm going to have to take them out. In fact, back up to chapter 29 of Deuteronomy. And chapter 29 is part of a very lengthy discussion that Moses is having with the people. And again, all of Deuteronomy is about Moses sitting down the whole congregation of the people. Everybody gather around, and let me remind you what the laws are. Let me remind you what the rules are. Let me remind you what the blessings are. If you do what is right and follow him, let me explain God's great promises. Also, let me explain the curses. If you refuse to obey, let's explain those a little bit too, right? And does God keep all of his promises?
Yes. Sure.
Promises to bless and promises to curse. Yes. And here in 29, look what it says, starting in verse 24. Because in verse 29, he explains that they will do what? This is even before God tells them, by the way, in chapter 31. He knows that what? If you disobey, God will come and curse this land. What land? The land of milk and honey. The promised land. He will curse this land if they do that. In fact, it will be so bad, God is telling Moses, that what? Verse 24. Even all nations shall say, wherefore hath the Lord done this unto this land? What meaneth the heat of this great anger? Before they even go in, God is already telling them what? It's going to get bad because you will turn against your God.
Good Father tells them that first.
You will follow other gods. You will do terrible, despicable things and reject your God. It's going to be so bad that I will have to drive you out. And the rest of the world's going to look, boy, what did their God do to them? What did they do? Right? Go verse 25. Then men shall say, because they have forsaken the covenant of the Lord God of their fathers, which he made with them when he brought them forth out of the land of Egypt. For they went and served other gods and worshipped them, gods whom they knew not and whom he had not given unto them. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against this land to bring upon it all the curses that are written in this book. And the Lord rooted them out of their land in anger and in wrath and in great indignation. and cast them into another land as it is this day. What day? Not this day. But whenever people talk about it, why aren't they in their land? Now, let's do a little history here, if you recall. That's my idea of Israel.
Indian spear.
What's that?
Indian spear.
There you go. And you have this area of Judea, Judah, right? Mm-hmm. The southern kingdom, you got, we'll put it right about there, Jerusalem, somewhere around that area. Just guessing. So you have Judah, right? Judah is the southern kingdom. It is Judah, it is Benjamin and Simeon, but they didn't really get much. So this is that area. And then they had 10 tribes up north, right? Which were known as what? Israel, right? And this all happened after Solomon. After King Solomon let his heart be taken away from God by his 700 wives and 300 concubines, God said, I am ripping this kingdom away. And I'm going to split it in half. And the 10 tribes of the north, 2 tribes of the south, this is what's going to happen. Now, because of David, I cannot utterly destroy Judah. I cannot utterly get rid of this. But these guys, what did they decide to do? They decided to worship other gods. Yeah. Do you ever remember what the first order of business was for the new king of Israel? After he was able to take these 10 tribes to follow him, his first was, you know what we need to do? We need to put a golden calf down here and a golden calf down up there so everybody can go and worship God. And it didn't get any better, right? They were always going up on the hills and going worshiping other gods and doing other things, and it got terrible. Did God warn them? Mm-hmm. Over and over and over again. Did they do exactly what God said they were going to do?
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did. So what did he do? He rooted them out completely.
80-70?
Completely took them out of there, brought in people from all of that. That's what Assyria did. When Assyria came in, they utterly destroyed them, took them out, placed them into other countries, put them into their other, and they brought other people from those countries in. Well, later on in the book, when we talk about Jesus, those are the Samaritans. Half-breeds at best. Half Jew, half something else, right? And this is what it was. He rooted them out. And this is what he's talking about here. This is what's going to happen because your heart will not be right. And these guys down here, they were taken away to Babylon for 70 years, right? And they were allowed to come back, but still, where was their heart? Did he allow them to rebuild the temple? Yes. Rebuild the city of Jerusalem? Yes.
Set of idols.
Well, what did God want for Israel? What has God always wanted for Israel?
Peace.
He wants a single nation where all of his people serve him with their whole heart as their king, as their God. Right? Is that too much to ask? Evidently, yes. Evidently, it's way too much to ask. Because God, even before he even set one foot into that land, he already knew they weren't going to do it. And that he was going to have to do this. Why am I telling you this? Why am I reminding you this? Because of our first chapter that's really about the Millennial Kingdom, chapter 30. Because even as he is saying, I'm going to root you out of there and curse this land, he also knows that he is going to bring them back. Chapter 30. Deuteronomy 30. And it shall come to pass when all these things are come upon you, the blessing and the curse which I have set before you, and you shall call them to mind among all the nations whither the Lord thy God hath driven thee. And again, he's going to drive them out, right? What countries are Israelites in today? Probably all of them. They are literally everywhere. And when they got kind of settled somewhere, what did God kind of allow to happen? Let's drive them out some more. Let's push them out. Let's push them here. Let's put them there. Oh, you guys having a fun time there in Russia? Oh, let's push you out. Let's go to America. Oh, you got any problems there? Let's push you out here. Right? They're everywhere. He has shoved them out. He knew this was going to happen. And as they do that, wherever they have driven, they're going to remember who? God. And shall return unto the Lord thy God, and shalt obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children, with all thine heart and with all thy soul, that then the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity, and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations whither the Lord thy God has scattered thee. And this is one of the major reasons for the millennial kingdom. It hasn't happened yet, by the way. Don't be all Zionistic on me. They have not all been returning. It's not all. Just because there is a nation Israel, that was not the return of the Israelites to, with all their heart, to worship their king.
Right.
That day is coming. In fact, when is it going to happen? When their hearts are right with God and they return to God from wherever they are. You know when that's going to happen? Then. Now we'll see this more. But as it says in Daniel,
7-year tribulation.
as it says in Revelation, that 7-year tribulation with 144,000 out there, and then what happens at the end of that 7-year tribulation? The hearts of God's people are turned back to who?
God.
To God. And then comes
All
this.
hell.
I will gather all of them unto me. Verse 4. If any of thine people be driven out unto the uttermost part of heaven, from thence will the Lord thy God gather thee, and from thence will he fetch thee. And the Lord thy God will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it, and he will do thee good, and multiply thee among thy fathers. And the Lord thy God will circumcise thine heart, and the heart of your seed, to love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy that thou mayest what? Live. And this is the reason for the millennium. This is the opportunity for, in this world, for God to finally have a nation that loves them with all their heart and serves them with all of their heart. And he's going to bring people back from all over the world, anybody alive with that, bring them all back and bring them back where? To Jerusalem. To, as we're going to see, the entire land. And it's going to be the old. He's going to divide up the land again. He's going to give them all their spots. So all the people who are Zebulunites, whatever they are, Benjaminites, and everybody is going to have their space, as we're going to see in Ezekiel, and they're all going to come back, and that is going to be the one nation with who as their king?
God, Jesus.
Jesus Christ as their king, sitting on the throne in what city? Jerusalem. This isn't the new Jerusalem. This isn't the new heaven and the new earth. This is here and now, because that's what God's plan is. And I find that amazing, because the reality of the matter is, God's basically said to Abraham what? I'm going to make you a great nation, and you will be my people. And for how many centuries now have they been saying, oh, no, you're not. We will not serve you. We will worship other gods. We will do this. But at the end of the day, does God always get his way?
Yes.
In fact, isn't that what the new heaven and new earth is? We have Garden of Eden, perfect creation, walking hand in hand with God, right? And our answer to that was, nah, I don't like them. I don't need that. But is God going to get that in the end?
Sure will.
And in this, we see the same thing. God said to Abraham, you will be my people and I will be your king. And is he going to get that? Mm-hmm. He's going to get that in the promised land. Yes. When? In the millennial kingdom. In fact, look what it says. Verse 6, and the Lord thy God will circumcise thy heart. Verse 7, I'm sorry. And the Lord thy God will put all these curses upon thine enemies, and on them that hate thee, which persecutest thee. And thou shalt return and obey the voice of the Lord, and do all his commandments which I command thee this day. And the Lord thy God will make thee plenteous in every work of thy hand, and the fruit of thy body, and the fruit of thy cattle, and the fruit of thy land for good. For the Lord will again rejoice over thee for good, as he rejoiced over thy fathers. And that is what we're going to see as we go through like Isaiah and Ezekiel. As those prophecies is, it is going to be a time when he will truly bless his people. What people? The Israelites. Where? In the promised land. What are the borders of the promised land going to be? The original border of the promised land. All the way to the Euphrates, yep. All the way to the Mediterranean. And he's going to have his plan. Have they been fighting them all along?
Yep.
Yes. Why?
Okay.
Because they're such stupid people. No, because they're what? People. How long have we been fighting God on things? We fight him all the time. Well, how much does God want to bless his church? We fight him on it, huh? How much does God want to bless his children? And we fight him on it. And he says, this is going to, but at the end of the day, God has a plan, and who's in control? God. And will he have his way? Yes. Absolutely he will. And he will bring devastation on all the other people. He'll curse all the other nations who hate them. But he will bless his people and will bring them all back. And that is his purpose in completing this work. Okay? Let's go to Daniel real quick. Keep something in Deuteronomy, because we are coming back to Deuteronomy 30. Because we're going to have a little choice here at the end. Let's remind ourselves that Daniel also talks about God's plan. How many are familiar with King Nebuchadnezzar? Who can spell it? Nebuchadnezzar. I gotta get it in my head. But Nebuchadnezzar was the king of Babylon, one of the greatest kingdoms this world has ever known. Nobody can stand up to him, right? In fact, one of the countries he destroyed was these guys. He destroyed Judah. He destroyed and utterly destroyed Jerusalem. And took captives like Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, right? Took them into Babylon and eventually took many, many people out of Judah and brought them into Babylon for 70 years, right? And one night, Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. You remember what the dream was? I get to draw some more. Aren't you lucky? It was a giant statue. And the statue had a head. Head of what? Gold.
Oh, yeah.
Head of gold. Shoulders and arms, right? And they were of?
Bronze?
Silver.
Silver. We're not bronze.
And thighs. Were just little iffy. Little stumpy things. Of? Bronze.
Bronze.
And legs of iron. And feet.
Clay and something else.
Yep, clay and iron.
Clay and iron.
Now, Daniel looks at that and goes, I don't know what that means. Actually, we can look back and we know exactly what this means. Now, Daniel told Nebuchadnezzar that the gold head is who? This is Babylon. Babylon's like the gold standard of human rule. So effective, so great was their power. And King Nebuchadnezzar, now he let that go to his head, because what was his next action? Let's make a big gold statue to me and everybody bow down to it. Totally missing the point. Because what was the point? Yes, there's this, but then there's another kingdom going to come up, and that is known as the Medes and the Persians. Right? Not quite as good as gold, but big, right? Strong, lasts a long time. In fact, it lasted over a century. So, I mean, it lasted a long time, right? Then a very fast one's going to come along, known as the what? Greeks. And then the Romans. And then I like to call this us. Nowadays. Because who is the dominant culture in this world? It is the Roman, right? It is still the Roman. It's still the European. It's still the Western. It's still that. But it's a mix. It's not a unified. It's not a thing, but it's still there, right? And so we have the statue, and then all of a sudden, what happens in this dream? A big old rock comes out of the mountain, comes tumbling down, and crushes the feet, and the whole thing is destroyed. Okay? Now again, Daniel really doesn't understand this. All he understands is this one. But we, looking back, can we see that this is true?
Yeah.
This is exactly what's happened?
The empire's new.
Exactly. In fact, he goes on and has another dream about, Daniel does, about beasts. And it's the same thing. Explains the beasts. He has another one about a goat. Again, explain a little more about the Greeks and things like that. I mean, he gets all of this right. But here's the question. What is God's plan here? His plan is for this. What's this? This is the rock. Let's go to chapter 9, verse 24. Here's God's plan. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city to finish what? The transgression. This is God's plan. What transgression? All those things that they did. All that God said that they were going to do, going after other gods and all that stuff, and rejecting him as king, all of that. God is going to purify his people. Right? He's going to do that. And how much is determined? 490 years. And he's got it all laid out. And to make an end of sins, and to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision of prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. This is the plan, right? And how does it play out? Verse 25, know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks. Or 9 years. And that happened, by the way. By the time that the edict went out for the people to leave Babylon, this is under the Medes and Persians, you can leave and go and rebuild. It took them 49 years to rebuild. So 49 years. So I like how he gives them kind of that short distance within one generation marker. So everybody's like, oh yeah, this is happening. Because then it gets a little further out, right? So from the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem, the Messiah shall be 7 weeks, and then 62. 62 times 7 is 14, 42, 43, 434 years. And what happens 434 years after Jerusalem is finished being built? Who rides into Jerusalem? Christ does. Jesus rode in 434 years later, after the walls are finished being rebuilt. Jesus rides through that gate in that wall. The very same wall. And what do they say? Hosanna. Hosanna in the highest, right? Yes. That is everything. Knowing therefore understand that from the going forth, troublous times. And the street shall be built again, the wall even in troublous times. And it was. There was all kinds of problems. And after 62 weeks, so after the 434 years, shall Messiah be what? Cut off, killed, but not for himself. And the people of the prince shall come and shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood, and unto the end of the war desolations are determined. So, Jesus, the Messiah, rides in after 434 years, and he's cut off. What does cut off mean?
Gone.
Killed. He got better 3 days later. But he was killed, and after that will come the destruction of what? The city. And when does that happen? In 70 A.D., Rome came in. These guys, Romans, came and they destroyed utterly Jerusalem. If you ever want to see a scary account, read that. According to Roman historians, it's the only recorded time when Roman generals and legionnaires lost control of their men. They were so mad, and they had no control over their men. And it was terrible what they did to Jerusalem. Who said so? With a flood, they will come and they will destroy this city. Does God know what he's doing? Verse 27. And he shall confirm the covenant and make for many for 1 more week. That leaves 1 more week. This is 62 plus 7 is 69. How many weeks will it take to finish God's work with these people? 70. So that means 1 7-year period for God to finish his work with his people. And what's the purpose of the work? To finish the transgression and to make an end of sins and to make reconciliation for iniquity and bring in everlasting righteousness and to seal up, finish all the visions and prophecies and to anoint the most holy. Their king, right? And he shall confirm the covenant for money for 1 week, and in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. That's when the great tribulation comes. And for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even until the consumption, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. So after that 7-year period, who comes? After he has completed his work and made his people clean, who comes? The Holy One comes. Jesus Christ comes. And he comes, and as in this, he is that what? That rock that comes down and does what to those feet?
Destroys.
Crushes them, crushes all of mankind's great kingdoms, and establishes himself as this mountain that will rule on this earth forever. That will rule forever.
Perfect time.
This earth or the next earth. Right, exactly right. So all of this, do you see God's plan here? And it's all for what purpose? He wants to have on this earth, in this promised land, as he promised to Abram, where he will sit upon the throne and his people will worship him, his people will serve him, and his people will follow him completely.
Amen. And
will he get what he wants?
Amen.
Yes. And they will do it for how long?
Forever.
1,000 years. It'll be 1,000 years when he will have that perfection in his promised land. Now, there's going to be other people, though. There's going to be other nations. There's going to be other things going on. But in his land, as we're going to see. So I want to set this up because I want you to see in all of this, God has a plan, doesn't he?
Yes.
And has he told us his plan?
Yes.
How many like movies like that? Yes. Where the bad guy sits there and says, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this, 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 and this. And he hands it to the guy and says, stop me. That's what God's done. He's like, hey, Satan, I'm doing this. Stop me.
Think about it.
Can he?
Nope.
No. What about our own weaknesses, our own sin, and our own, can we stop it?
No.
No. Which brings us to a question. Which side do you want to be on?
Amen. The light.
You want to be on God's side and get the blessings and the benefits of all of this, or do you want to keep fighting? And I ask that because let's go back to Deuteronomy chapter 30. That was Moses' question to the people. As he has gone through all the blessings and gone through all the curses and told them, hey, you're not going to do well here. You're going to choose. Many of you are going to choose. We as a nation are going to choose. But you individually need to choose, don't you?
Yes.
What if I told you tomorrow the United States is going to go whole hog against God, is going to reject God, and going to hate God? What should your response to that be? Well, I'm still on God's side. We're going to win, so.
Rejoice.
So let's be a light. Let's shine brighter. Let's do this. And that's basically what Moses is trying to tell them in chapter 30. Right after he says, hey, this nation's going to really mess up. But God is still going to restore it, isn't he? So which side do you want to be on?
The winning side.
That's why Deuteronomy chapter 30, starting in verse 11. For this commandment which I command thee this day is not hidden from thee, neither is it far off. Again, God doesn't hide things. It's not by our will, by our intelligence, we can attain unto him. He just lays it out, doesn't he? It is not in heaven that you should say, who shall go up for us to heaven and bring it unto us that we might hear it and do it, right? We don't need a representative, somebody good and holy to go up and get it and bring it down. He brought it to us. In fact, he came to us, didn't he?
Yes.
Neither it is beyond the sea that you should say, who shall go over the sea for us and bring it unto us that we may hear it and do it. It's not like a great adventure, right? We don't really need some great warrior to go and find this thing for us. It's handed to us. But the word is very nigh unto thee, in thy mouth and in thy heart, that thou mayest do it. By the way, this is quoted in the New Testament, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. The word is here. It's very clear. You choose. Verse 15, see, I have set before thee this day life and good, and death and evil. And that I command thee this day to love the Lord thy God, to walk in his ways, and to keep his commandments and his statutes and his judgments, that you may live and multiply, and the Lord thy God shall bless thee in the land whither thou goest to possess it. This is before they even step a foot inside of it. Before you even go inside, you want to stay there or not? But if thine heart turn away, so that you will not hear, but you should be drawn away and worship other gods and serve them, I denounce unto you this day that you shall surely perish, and that you shall not prolong your days upon the land, whither thou goest or passest over Jordan to go to possess it. I call heaven and earth this day against you. And I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choose what? Of those, which one do you want?
Life.
Life. Choose life and blessing, right? That both you and your children may live. That you may love the Lord thy God, and that thou mayest obey his voice, and that thou mayest cleave unto him, for he is your life, and the length of your days, that you may dwell in the land which the Lord sware unto thy fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give them. And even as he's saying that, remember he says this right after he said, but we know you're going to mess up, but we also know God will bring you back, won't he?
Amen.
But how many want to be on the right side the entire time, though? You don't want to wait for the second chance. You don't want to wait for that, right? You want to be on his side the whole way. And that's what we're going to see in Isaiah next week. Isaiah makes it very clear. I will purge those who hate me. But I will bring everybody back who loves me. Right? So this is the choice. God has a plan here. And his plan for the millennial kingdom is focused to me. You read through all these passages, his focus is on his people. Now, will we be part of it? We will see that, yes. The saints will rule. We will be part of that. We will be with him. And we're the army that comes down. We're good. But his focus is his promise to Abraham. That he will bring them to that land, and he will be their king, he will be their God, and they will be his people. Has he gotten it yet? Nope. Hadn't gotten there yet. Like they never conquered the whole land, did they? They never fully did what they were supposed to do.
Right.
But is that going to stop God from keeping his promise?
No, nothing.
And God will have what he wants. Right? Any thoughts or questions about God's plan here? Or my drawing?
Well, they got him uprooted a lot, didn't they?
Abraham is not here. He's with God. But
Yeah.
God still is thinking about that promise and pulling the whole world.
Yeah.
Which is so interesting, like mind-blowing for me.
That's why Jesus said that Abraham rejoices to see my day. Because Abraham is sitting there, yeah, he's watching this going, yeah, it's all happening, just as God said. I'm sure Daniel's sitting there saying, too, yes, 434 years, dude. He was probably counting those days, too, right? Yeah, this is it, let's go. Here he comes, right? And that's the joy we can have as we know God's promises will come true, right?
Amen.
Just look for them. Yeah, and Abraham, of course, that's when Jesus made the amazing statement. How can you possibly know Abraham? You're only 50-something years old. He was actually 30. So, kind of an insult. What do we say? Before Abraham was, I am. Again, going to what we talked about this morning. That's who God is, right? And God is in control of this. You must be what?
Sure.
And God will have his way, won't he?
Amen.
All right? So look at this more in depth. Okay, I just want to give you this kind of this backdrop of God's promise. This one right here. And this one, to Abram, that, hey, this is what's going to happen. And will he have his way? Yes. So we'll see it all play out and see what happens. And yes, it's amazing to me. When I first read through Ezekiel, I was like, why are they doing they're doing sacrifices? They're doing like the law. Why do they do that? But you notice there? What does it say? They will be my people and you will follow my law and keep all of these commandments. So yes, during the millennium, his people, I don't think us, but all of his people will follow the law completely. Fascinating. God is so particular, isn't he? So he's going to do it. He's going to do it how he wants. Yes.
It will be interesting to see how it's interpreted when it's interpreted properly.
Yeah, exactly right.
Because that was the problem in Jesus' time.
Yeah. And we're going to see Isaiah's problem during Isaiah's time next week. Now, after he talks about all of that, the next verses are, but I will bring you back after I destroy you. So we get the millennial kingdom. That millennial promise keeps coming up every time God says, I am going to destroy you because you will not love me and you will not do this. The next verses are what? I will bring you back. God keeps the promise. Let's pray.